Welcome back. For me, it's the same night and just minutes before I recorded the other video, but for you guys, I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to take to upload. Sometimes it's really quick, other times it takes like forever, especially if my computer goes to sleep in the middle of it. So, I think I did mention in the last video about Sines versus Kessler, which is the official name for the lawsuit against Unite the Right, which, for those of you who don't know, because I don't know if international people are tuning into this, maybe I'm being a little too optimistic, but I'm sure there are a lot of Americans who don't really know about it either, although it was covered in the news today, so maybe. Anyway, so in 2017, there was this neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. If you heard about the march with the white supremacists who were carrying tiki torches and shouting that we will not be replaced, which is the Great Replacement theory, which is a Nazi theory, and then blood and soil and stuff about Jews, and then they trapped people around a statue, and then the next day they had basically a violent rally in Charlottesville after the night before, which was unplanned. It was found to be planned in court. Yeah, the decision was made today as of making this video. And then the second day it was like a huge Nazi, white supremacist, Southern Pride rally, which had a lot of violence in it. They beat a black man pretty badly. I won't go into detail on that. There are pictures online if, God forbid, you want to look for it. And then that was also the same rally that a Nazi, it was James Fields, got in a car and plowed through a line of counter-protesters, kind of like that asshole in Wisconsin. Is it Wisconsin? Yeah, Wisconsin did after the Rittenhouse trial, which is very suspicious to me. Anyway, yeah, so he drove through counter-protesters and injured a bunch of people, traumatized a bunch more, and killed a woman. And then bragged about it online. So anyway, that's a very bad summation, but it's very traumatic. And the fact that it happened in 2017 and not 1933 makes it kind of difficult for me to talk about, because it was 4 years ago. And we're still seeing the effects of it today. I guess we're still seeing the effects of the first rise of the Nazis today, but it's more difficult when it's that recent to not necessarily understand what happened, but to grasp it as reality while at the same time grasping it as reality. Anyway, so yeah, the trial has been about 4 years in the making. It started October 25th, and the jury deliberations ended today, finding for the plaintiffs. Woohoo! Even though all of those Nazis are broke-ass bitches, so they're never going to see the money. The point was to, one, bankrupt them, and two, tell all white supremacists out there and all Nazis, you don't get to do this and get away with it. You don't get to commit political violence. You don't get to commit racist acts of violence and get away with it. There will be consequences. We will come after you. So that was the plaintiffs knew getting into it that they most likely won't see maybe even a dime of that money. But the point was to set a precedent, which I feel that they did pretty well. It was a total of $26 million awarded to the plaintiffs. Anyway, you guys should go read up on it. But one of the reasons why I'm mentioning it is because the book I was reading while this trial was going on was History on Trial by Deborah Lipstadt, who was surprisingly an expert witness in the case. It was very surprising for me, who found out last minute, and so I called into the court to listen, because you could listen without talking because of COVID measures. But anyway, she did amazing. She was like fabulous. But I expected that. I was starstruck. Anyway, so yeah, I was reading this and then she came up in a trial. But anyway, so back in the late 90s, 1993, she wrote a book called Denying the Holocaust, which was about Holocaust denial. And in it, she called a historian named David Irving one of the most dangerous spokespersons for Holocaust denial. She also called him a bunch of other things, but they were all truthful. I just don't have them at hand right now. I have to get my hands on that book. I haven't yet. Anyway, so yeah, she called him that in her book, and it was published by Penguin, and David Irving sued her for libel. And he did so in the UK because he's a UK citizen, and he was doing it for the version that was published in the UK. So he was suing her and Penguin. And in the UK, it's not like it is in the US, where you're innocent until proven guilty, basically, here. In England, it basically feels like you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent, which is messed up, and that's yet another reason why I'm glad we split from you guys, but we won't get into that because I'll go off. Anyway, yeah, so the proof of innocence is on the defendant in the UK. So Deborah Lipstadt had to prove that everything that she said about David Irving was correct. Otherwise, she was going to have to pay him fees, and he would be able to crow about it because he's still alive right now. But anyway, so yeah, she decided, he was probably hoping, I'm sure, that she would just back down and take it. But the problem was that if she, because of what she had said and what he was saying, like what she was talking about, if she backed down, he would be able to say that his version of the events of the Holocaust was correct and was approved by the British courts and stuff like that. So she could not back down, which, I mean, is pretty brave. But a lot of people came together and helped with her defense fund. It was a super long trial, and eventually, with a lot of expert witnesses, they crushed David Irving, and he kind of crushed himself too. He seems like a moron. And I'm pretty sure I can say that because anyway, but yeah, they crushed every single one of his Holocaust denial things. prove that he was racist to against Jews and minorities. I mean, one of the things that he kept trying to tote in court and out of court in interviews was that he wasn't racist. He had employed minorities as his housework, and they were very nice young women with good boobs. And it's just like, how does that, what a crazy man. In what crazy world does that make you not racist? Not only does it make you racist, it makes you a predator. And he would sing like these songs to his daughter Jessica about like whenever he saw a minority pass by. I am a baby Aryan. It went on and on like that, and it was particularly nasty, so I won't repeat it. But yeah, so they busted him and all of his Holocaust denials. They also busted him because in the course of doing this libel trial, they pulled from his other works to prove that he was twisting history to meet his perspective or what he wanted it to meet. And what he wanted it to do was exonerate Hitler. So he twisted evidence and stuff like that to basically make the claim that Hitler didn't know about the final solution. He had no clue that the Jews were being systematically murdered. This was just a bunch of underlings who were doing it, and when he found out, he tried to stop them, which is insane because it was a huge, like, assembly line operation, basically. And Hitler didn't allow anything to happen without his approval. It was like, he was insane about that, but also because there are documents showing that he'd seen it or signed it and stuff like that. So, anyway, he got slapped. I definitely recommend reading the book. It was, I cried at the end when she won. I mean, that was obvious. Obviously, she wouldn't be able to write a book about it if she had lost, because she wouldn't be able to say anything about him if she lost the libel case. But I got pretty mad at a bunch of parts. But it was a really good read, really interesting. But yeah, he lost badly. The judge basically slapped him with a 350-page verdict judgment that branded him a racist and an anti-Semite and I can't remember the correct term for it, a bad historian. I don't know. You can look on his Wikipedia page because it's literally someone edited the Wikipedia page, so it calls him a racist and an anti-Semite and stuff on there. Very amusing. Really like to see that. But yeah, the judge literally sat there and wrote, it took him, I think, either 1 week or 2 weeks. He wrote 350 pages about why Irving was wrong and branded him these things so you could legally call him an anti-Semite and a racist. And then dropped all of the costs of the lawsuit from Lipstadt and Penguin onto him. And of course he tried to appeal it. So they went to the Court of Appeals. He presented it. The judge there said, no, I agree that you're a racist anti-Semite and you were twisting history for your own bizarre desires. And he didn't like that, so he appealed again, and I guess the final level in British court for this sort of thing is oral testimony, which you get a lot of leverage for, apparently, especially if you represent yourself. Yeah, that was another thing. He represented himself, and he was terrible at it. Just awful. I don't know what he was thinking. Well, he was probably thinking, I'm so good. I'm the greatest lawyer. I'm a great writer. I love Hitler, and I'm gonna win this. It'll be fine. Just as an FYI, a lot of the Nazis represented themselves in the Unite the Right trial, and let me tell you, that was a shit show. You should go and read their testimony. It's insane. I thought I was like going through the 5 stages of, I wouldn't say grief, I would say like I thought I was like slowly going insane, and reality wasn't real, because it was just like, where have I been all these years and where have they been? Because it's not been the same place, and also they're insane. Yeah, I would recommend reading all of that. Anyway, so he did the oral testimony, and he did it for hours and hours and hours, and it was in front of 3 judges that time. And then the judges said, after hearing all this, nope, we also agree that you're a racist anti-Semite, and you lie and twist history. And so that was it. Now he's branded that. But the jarring thing was that after this, and after that huge like summation and all the witness testimony and stuff like that showing what he did and where he twisted the facts and omitted parts of quotes and stuff to make it read like the way he wanted it to exonerate Hitler, some British historians were like not pleased about it. They were like, well, nobody could have stood up under that scrutiny. And it's like, well, they could have if they weren't lying and changing documents and stuff. But it is kind of worrisome. I mean, I'm sure part of it is the stupid British good old boys club. Oh, we're all historians. We have to stick up for each other. No, you don't. You stick up for each other when you know that you're right. This guy was obviously wrong. And an asshole. You really want to throw your hat into the ring with him? I wouldn't. I'd be like, no. No, he's done. But anyway, so that's what happened. I really liked the book. It was interesting. It was moving. It had a lot of... It gave me a lot of things to think about. I won't list all of it because I want you guys to read it. But in it, one of the things that happened was that Lipstadt became a representative to the survivors of them, basically. So to them, she was fighting for them, for their history and proof and stuff, because this had not been done for them. They, up until that point, really, they turned everywhere for help, and nobody did anything after the war. Nobody really acknowledged it. The Red Cross was silent, of course, and so they didn't really have someone who fought for them, and then they had this. So it's kind of like justice, finally, for them. So there were a bunch of survivors who came and talked to her and emailed her and stuff like that, and that definitely made me cry reading it. But yeah, one of the things that, I don't know if you'll have it in whatever version you get, but I got the Harper Perennial version because I'm addicted to that publisher. I don't know, it's something about like how I've never been disappointed by a book that they've published, and also the feel of the covers and how the covers look. I don't know how to explain that. But anyway, it has like one of those little author insight thingies in here, and then it had stuff like answers to frequently asked questions, and it had like a little thing about why she wrote this book. I'll read this part because I think it's good. Another significant aspect of this experience was the response of Holocaust survivors. My interactions with them were profoundly powerful. They sat quietly in court while Irving ridiculed them and claimed that they were either liars or psychotic. They kept telling me that I was their hero. While I appreciate being praised for what I do, I found their adulation unnerving. I felt undeserving of such gratitude from Holocaust survivors. Only after the trial did I realize that their praise had less to do with what I had done and more to do with what had not been done 60 years earlier when they so desperately needed help. I was reminded of the verse in Exodus that describes Moses' encounter with an Egyptian taskmaster beating an Israelite slave. And Moses looked here and there, and he saw that there was no person, and killed the Egyptian. Rabbinic commentators, uncomfortable with the textual suggestion that Moses was checking to ensure no one would see him kill the Egyptian, say he was actually looking for a person, someone of stature, to do justice. When he realized there was no one to dispense justice, he knew he had to act on his own. During the Holocaust, the victims looked here and there for help. There were few persons, governments, or institutions, including the Red Cross and the Vatican, willing to respond. It was not necessarily anti-Semitism which motivated their inaction. Many simply did not care. In the face of evil, they were neutral. All that Jews heard was a resounding, if not deafening, silence. For the victim, the callousness of the bystander was almost as painful as the cruelty of the perpetrator. Which is why I'm always talking about how you shouldn't be a bystander, because it's literally the opposite of helpful. Now, many decades later, and in vastly different circumstances, survivors felt that there was someone to fight for them. This time there was no neutrality. In defending myself against Irving, I had pierced the silence that so haunted them. It did not matter that my fight could not in any way be compared to the suffering they experienced. It did not matter that I faced no physical threat. It did not matter that my battle could not bring back their loved ones or mitigate their suffering. My fight became symbolic of what had been absent 60 years earlier. In dramatic contrast to the Holocaust, this time for they saw themselves as standing by my side, won. So I thought that was interesting, and that is Deborah Lipstadt's own words. It's pages 5 to 6 in the Harper Perennial version. So, very, very interesting book. Again, I recommend it, and I recommend reading her expert testimony, which has been released. I think you can just Google it, but she tweeted it out. If you look at Twitter, I can't remember her handle. She should be easy to find. I just put in her name, and I found her. Now I follow her, but anyway, you should read that, and then you should look into the trial about Unite the Right, because this is probably not the last time we've heard from those Nazis.